J like the letter, I'm making several waves. I know the mission is same. I made a splash, now all of my passes last like running a race with Usain. I keep it coming like this a buffet. And if I'm stumbling, I'm in the graves. Never gon' fumble it, I get the bag and I run with it. Gunning it, gunning it, gunning it, gunning it. Murray with the legs, all about finesse, I am not impressed. I don't need a rash coming in with blast, then you see the flash. Elohim with the melody and then he supply the breath. 70, keep it heavenly, everybody get the bread. I got the bread and I got the juice. I got some dogs and I let them loose. Bring in the storm, but this ain't the Zeus. Walk in the skies, but this ain't the loot. This ain't the cruise. We ain't the same, you ain't have a clue. I'm in the game and untouchable, cause I got the flame and this is the proof. Loading my toad, I still want all the smoke. We ain't talking about jokes, we just talking about more. I see all of my goals and it's looking like gold. I ain't asking for hope, cause I know that it's show. Now you seeing me blow. This is premeditated, I've been underrated. That's an understatement, I ain't coming later. The abundance came when I allowed my bosom to the loving greater. He the one who made it, so I'm in my bag. I died way before I ever raise a white flag. Shooting right back, raise the price tag. Chasing down all of these ghosts till I grab. Who could really stop me is what I ask. Homie, you can never get your time back. Only me and my reflection fight back. That's why this beat gon' probably need an ice pack. Just like the 26, I'm finna run with it. I ain't gon' punt, we ain't taking it knee. I keep the starters and we going farther like T.O. and Philly, we throwing it deep. This only possible through all the obstacles. I went ahead and I found me some peace. It's why my reflection is rocking the cheese. J like the letter, I'm making several waves. I know the mission the same. I made a splash, now all of my passes last like running a race with Usain. I keep it coming like this is buffet. And if I'm stumbling, I'm in the graves. Never gon' fumble it, I get the bag and I run with it. Gunning it, gunning it, gunning it, gunning it. Murray with the legs, all about finesse, I ain't not impressed. I don't need a rest, coming in with blast, then you see the flags. Elohim with the melody, and then he supply the breath. 70, keep it heavenly, everybody get the bread.
I got some bread and I got some cheese. I'm not impressed with none of the steez. Told her myself if it's up to me. Top of the list, I'm running the league, don't run into me. We not the same, the homie competes. I'm in the game, I'm pulling from deep. Lugging a loaf, this is everly. Another loaf, I've been burning to.
He goes in and he steals the Baron.
Oh yes. Hello everybody and welcome to Battle for Scotland. Now we've had an exciting week of Grand Finals, but today we're finally at the Counter-Strike 2 Grand Finals between University of Edinburgh and University of Dundee. I'm Kaijin and I'm of course joined by the lovely Berg here to bring you some exciting Grand Finals action. Berg, how excited are you that we're finally at the Grand Finals?
I mean, the Grand Finals is what we've been waiting for. Realistically, these are the best of the best. I've had a look at some of their player statistics on Face It, and both teams have got some heavy hitters. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out in this final.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I of course have watched a lot of the Glasgow universities play, but I haven't had really a chance to see Edinburgh or Dundee, especially in the Counter-Strike 2 scene. So this will be very, very exciting. Going into it, I don't have any kind of premonitions about who I think is going to win, but I'm sure the first game, of course, in the specified will be very telling. Of course, we don't know what the maps are and the picks and bans quite yet, but we'll be getting into that shortly. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I know these are two very strong teams, like you said, on Face It, just in this league in general. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we could have asked for a better Grand Finals here.
And obviously, for the Battle of Scotland, you can't really pick a lot better representatives for their regions. Obviously Edinburgh taking a couple wins in other games up to this point as well, so I think they're going to try and add on to their tally coming in. I'm not too sure about Dundee, so we'll see what they can bring out and bring onto the table.
Yeah, I'm sure by the end of this we'll have a nice kind of look at how everyone's doing across all the titles, but I just kind of want to take a look at the journey that these teams have taken to get here. You could see earlier this year Edinburgh had a nice match against Dundee and Angus College, and of course, already took out one Dundee University, looking to do that again, and of course Dundee as well, winning their matchup. So now it's here, it's the Grand Finals, and yeah, I think there's a lot of pride and bragging rights here on the line, Berg.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you want to be the best in your region in anything, let alone one of the most prestigious esports there are. And obviously, Edinburgh coming out previously in the year against a Dundee team, they want to repeat it. They want to bring this back and take the cake. But Dundee, maybe they want to avenge their fallen comrades on the other side. So this first game is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, I think the first map will definitely kind of give us a feel of just how badly these two teams want it. Of course, that's not going to be the only map, so there's time to come back after that one before we get in the first game. But I mean, you're right. I think Counter-Strike is kind of one of those standard. It's been around for a while. Everybody knows it, and if you want to be good at any TAC FPS, odds are, if you're playing on PC, you've dabbled around in Counter-Strike at some point or another. So, I mean, at this point, these teams are well seasoned. The players know what they're doing, and hopefully they can show it today. Like you said, will Dundee be able to avenge maybe kind of the brothers from across the road? Who's to say? At the end of the day, of course, you always want to come out on top, but I mean, there's a little bit of territorial rights on the line here too, right?
I mean, there very much is. Obviously, it is the battle for Scotland at the end of the day. Whoever takes this one is the Scottish CS2 champion. So,
this is the battle for Scotland, for all of Scotland. If you want to come out on top, you want to do it here. Remember that this is it. This is all or nothing in this best of 5, and I'm excited. Berg, what kind of maps do you think we're going to see? Again, I don't really know what these teams typically run, so I don't know what those bans are going to be looking like.
I'm not 100% sure which team will favor each map either, to be honest with you. I think the first map will be a staple. So you might see a Mirage or a Dust 2 maybe. Mm-hmm. Just a map that everyone is comfortable on. That it will set the tone, and it will be pure skill more than map knowledge, maybe. Mm-hmm. I mean, both the teams will know every map in and out anyway. But if you're playing on something like Mirage or Dust 2, it's a good way to start the final, getting that map out the way, getting a staple of the game out, and they're very aim maps instead of map knowledge. So it'll be interesting to see what these teams actually pick and ban first. Obviously, the first game in a best of 5 can set the tone going into the rest of it. So I think whoever takes this first map will be in very good steading for the rest of the final.
Yeah, and it's also gonna come down to like you said. I mean, I think they're kind of the standard maps that are more maybe mechanically based. And it also depends, how long have these rosters been together? Of course, I'm not privy to that knowledge, but have they had time? About at this point, we're about halfway through, maybe the school year, and so even those new freshmen coming aboard should have at least been practicing for a while. Do they have strats on specific maps, or are they like, hey, you know what, we need to rely on fundamentals? We're not as cohesive together on some of these maps that require more coordinated plays. And if that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mirage Dust 2, like you said. I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Decider is brought down to, let's say, a Dust 2, and they're opting to pick maybe a map that they know they're strong on, and they're hoping that their opponents aren't. Because that's always the other part of it too, right? Sometimes it gets a bit dicey when you want to choose kind of a standard map like that. If you think, well, they have just as good of a chance to be just as strong on a map like that, especially when that's been around for forever, it seems like. So yeah, I mean, I think it'll be telling when we see those picks and bans come in, who's picking what, and who's picking those comfortable maps, who's maybe picking kind of a curveball, and maybe they're cooking up something, and back at their university. I'm excited. I'm just excited for Counter-Strike. I've been in a big Counter-Strike phase lately. I can't stop queuing, so I'm excited to watch.
It's a dangerous game not being able to stop. But realistically, these teams have probably been in a similar situation building up to this point as well. I highly doubt the teams haven't been practicing. I expect there to be smoke lineups out the wazoo.
Oh yeah.
Especially on, again, these staple maps where basically everyone knows what the common strats are. It'll be interesting to see which team starts on CT&T side as well, because on certain maps that can be super beneficial if you get an early lead on one of the two. And it'll be a situation of I feel like the first map will be them trying to feel each other out, and then they'll start getting in their groove, and we'll see individual stars start to shine out of these teams. Obviously, I want to see some smoke criminal Stewie 2K type things, but again, fundamentals are a big thing in Counter-Strike, and if you've got those fundamentals, it can carry you.
Yeah, it really can, and yeah, I would expect to see quite a bit. And like you said, I mean, of course, if you're on a Counter-Strike team, you're no stranger to putting in the practice, putting in the work, and probably queuing in your downtime as well. But I think also, like with the RMR, we're getting ready for at the major coming up in Shanghai. I think a lot of people have been watching a lot of professional Counter-Strike as well, and how much of those kind of team strats and plays are you pulling into this. But you're right, I mean, at the end of the day though, mechanics do go a long way, because when it comes down to it, especially in a league like this, right, if you have those fundamentals and those basics down, really, if you can click your opponent's heads before they click yours, sometimes that is what it comes down to. And the whole point of lineups and plays are to give yourself an advantage, but you still have to have those fundamentals. And you know, the kind of the first round of this bracket happened quite a bit ago, so they've known that they were moving on to the grand finals in Battle for Scotland. They've had time to prepare, and I expect to see both teams kind of bring it all today.
I also expect them maybe to have researched each other. Obviously, those VODs have been up for a fair while, so they've had their opportunities to see what these teams actually play, how they play, but on the other hand, teams, because it's been such a long time, they could have adapted, new things could have happened, new players may have come in, like you said earlier, that could just change the shift up. So I said before, I think this first map will be them feeling it out, and then we'll find our groove a little bit more later in. And before we go into these games, I think we are going to go for a quick break as the players get ready.
Don't go anywhere. We'll have that resolved very shortly. We're going to just fix those tech issues, and then we'll come right back.
Let him tell it, I done done the most. I'm jumping, hopping, skipping, frogging, ribbon over all these gimmicks like I'm jumping rope. I done phone the gold. Hit me with a light, I got right back to it. Future looking brighter than a diamond jeweler, and the reason why, cause I put God in my meals. It's been like this, it's like Sawyer Way. Sauce on everything, bolognese. I've been legit since the 7th grade, and it's safe to say I control the wave. Control my speed, control my pace. Clean the G's, let's hold the grace. Please believe I've been running this marathon, and my faith gon' hold the place. They saying I win again. Hard act to follow and tough pill to swallow, remind them of sentiment. This gift is a benefit, see a hater nigga sentiment. Ever see me chillin', plotting no millions and counting these benches? Just know I got them straight from him again.
J like the letter, I'm making several waves. I know the mission is same. I made a splash, now all of my passes last like running a race with Usain. I keep it coming like this is buffet. And if I'm stumbling, I'm in the graves. Never gon' fumble it, I get the bag and I run with it. Gunning it, gunning it, gunning it, gunning it. Murray with the legs, all about finesse, I am not impressed. I don't need a rest, coming in with less, then you see the flags. Elohim with the melody, and then he supply the bread. 70, keep it heavenly, everybody get the bread. Ayy, I got the recipe, never gonna let any op get the best of me. Thought it was distance, but haters is next to me. Talk to the spirit, you know I've been heavenly. Company definitely show your trajectory. This ain't a diss cause I say it respectfully. It's time to eat up, bread like a speeder. Taking it deeper and that's how it better be. I never let the comparison get to me. I just remember the promises meant for me. I know the enemy and that he sent for me. I keep the blood of the lemons my centerpiece. I cannot trust in no crystals or energy. Look at the chemistry, it do not even mix chemically. Most of the tricks they be gimmicks, they mimic the truth. It's poison and we got the remedy. There is a bomb, apply it, the fire can stand to the tallest of giants, the tyrant and all the suppliers are scheming and lying. They selling his dreams and we buying it. Show me the chicken, I'm frying it. Show me the dough and I'm prying it. Ain't never lacking it, so what I'm packing, he taking it, he magnifying it. They say you ain't bout it. Tell them that you finna make it, but they doubt it. But you rose like the flower. Tell me what it's like to live with superpowers. I don't know, but I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I just know that I'ma get it. I'ma get drive the bus, the truck, the gas is stuck. I ain't the one to rely on the luck. I put in work and then he show up. I know it's fake to sit in the reps, ain't no regrets, I do too much. It ain't me if you saying I stunt. He calling the place and I do what he want. This ain't a front, glory to G-O-D. It's what you could do with a mustard seed. It's what you could do when you start to believe. Take fear and you cast it inside of the sea. 100% out of me, cause he gave it all on the T when he let it bleed. So what is you saying to me? You just insecure about the love that turned me to a beast. I take a step and I ain't turning back. He made me first cause I know that I'm last. I ain't got time for no thing in the past. Learn from it first and then I react. Hands off me, don't hold me. Get it jumping like a trampoline. All truth ain't no trolling. We in good hands, no folding.
They say you ain't bout it. Tell them that you finna make it, but they doubt it.
But God did it.
But you rose like the flower. Tell me what it's like to live with superpowers.
I don't know, but I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I just know that I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I can't miss no Beverly, you can't hold me. Knew that it was my time and I ain't need a rollie. P139, that's the word. This provision is precision, you ain't gotta see the worth. Every situation different. Trust if you feeling out of luck or if you stuck, homie, you just can't miss this. It's so easy, you be thinking it's absurd. Gotta see the glory in the hurt. I remember back in apartments, humble beginnings what I start with. I'm still humble if you checking out my car 10. 2% we wasn't dancing like we Carlton. A product of the system living in our margins. Harvest all the planet, seeds I've been demanding. Trees taken for granted, faith just couldn't stand it. Standing on solid rock, now that's a firm foundation. We've been waiting and I'm praying we gon' make it. Face it, this year ain't even go the way we want it. Double jointed, two-faced, but now we on it. Seeing your true colors in this light and it's alarming. But God see the mess and he get clean it up with Charmin. Ooh, the boo-boo, ooh, the view. Watching God's plan like a show from Hulu. Who's who? Gon' see it as soon as the snow moves. We roll through, cause all you're together like pork stew. I can't miss no Beverly, you can't hold me. Knew that it was my time and I ain't need a roll. P139, that's the word. This provision is precision, you ain't gotta see the worth. Every situation different. Trust if you're feeling out of luck or if you stuck, homie, you just can't miss this. It's so easy, you be thinking it's absurd. Gotta see the glory in the hurt, see the glory in the hurt. See the glory in the hurt. Okay, by the still water, I'm playing this so sturdy. I don't need magic to know that he worthy. He coming with the beef with the ones who get jerky. And on the shoe, he in the clutch, Jamal Murray. His plan got a plan, you ain't stressing the thing. You need more than Golden State to put some stress on the king. I don't flex, I just take a step and Elohim do the rest. Please don't think it's sweet, he got a sword, it's for your chest. It's for your soul, you worry about the gold, you can only take it home. Where I'm from it's not here, so I leave it all alone. Get the lyrics out the spirit, then I put them in a poem. Talk to God, I'm on the phone, he said I need to trust. He be the anchor when the waves is too much. I gotta thank him cause his way is so tough, but his faith is so amazing, so my praise it go nuts, and my praise it go nuts. I can't miss no Beverly, you can't hold me. Knew that it was my time and I ain't need a roll. P139, that's the word. This provision is precision, you ain't gotta see the worth. Every situation different. Trust if you're feeling out of luck or if you stuck, homie, you just can't miss this. It's so easy, you be thinking it's absurd. Gotta see the glory in the hurt, see the glory in the hurt.
Savage little baby and Fenty, baddest little baby of the century. Internet, blow up, superstar, don't touch. Showing off, causing a frenzy. She leaving imprint in your memory. Energy, focus, superstar, glow up. Superstar glow up, fit drip so sick, man, I'm all throw up. Take it in, don't rush, need 10 hours sleep, yeah, just woke up. Blessings on blessings, just keep coming on at me high speed. Check out the positive man like it's Nike. Hottest headline on the festival, 100 racks for a piece of my schedule. They all thought I was delusional, but I'm a manifesto of miracles. Best dress, I'm on the list on the internet, upload a clip and hit me a lick. Oh my god, I'm so rich, couple milli just off of the clicks. Savage little baby in Fenty, baddest little bitty the century.
Hello and welcome back. Small tech break there, but I think all the issues have been resolved from that one, so I'm pretty sure we'll be heading into the first game shortly. We've been in the break. We've been looking at the team sheets on both Face It and what the players have sent us, and like I said earlier, both teams have their heavy hitters. The Face It profiles aren't very far apart in their Face It levels. Obviously, in a final like this, that can sway one way or the other, but final pressure does come in. Can both teams handle the fact that they are in a final?
Yeah,
that's the big question, really.
It definitely is, and like you said, I mean, in a collegiate setting, this is a little bit different, right? So, and as we were kind of going through, a couple of these, Counter-Strike isn't even their main title that they play, and so obviously, I think a lot of fundamentals are gonna come into it, and I saw quite a few Valorant players, and I think there's a lot of players that migrated from Counter-Strike to Valorant, so it shouldn't be hard going back. But for a lot of players, especially in the collegiate scene, I think Valorant was kind of their first opened up their eyes to this world, and now they're going back to Counter-Strike, and so I think it's a lot more fundamentals that it comes down to, and so sometimes that's not always shown kind of in the Face It level, and not just Valorant. I just know that's the most similar, but a lot of these players do play on multiple different teams, and sometimes that's helpful, right? You pick up some strats here and there, a different kind of sense of teamwork and different things you do. Sometimes it can hurt you, and so you really can't get a feel of that until you're in game. But we do know that both of these schools did win that first matchup, so we know at least something is going right for them, and so I again would expect this to be a pretty close grand finals, all things considered.
Yeah, no matchup is an easy matchup realistically, so a game like CS can, as much as it is completely skill based, there are any team can technically win, and being able to get into a final is one thing, but being able to take that final and take that opportunity in a best of 5, it's a whole different ballpark. Like the stress levels, the making a singular mistake can swing the game and the whole series one way or the other. So I think both teams will they'll come out either super aggressive or play very reserved and try and keep a little bit to themselves for the first map. I don't know how much your experience is in playing in tournament settings, but personally I've played in a few, and tournament settings are way different than anything else.
Oh yeah,
it's a make or break.
Especially the grand finals. I mean, when you talk about like the culmination of an entire event, right? I mean, this is it. This is literally all or nothing. You're either walking away the champion or you're going home. Now, second place isn't anything to scoff at, of course, but at this point, you've been preparing for this grand finals for so long. And like you said, it comes down to fundamentals and mechanics, but that's not the only aspect of it. And I think a huge aspect of any grand finals, or any game in general, any series, is the mental aspect. Like, you know, you might be down. Can you mentally stay in the game and bring it back? Because like we said, I mean, on paper, both of these two teams do have what it takes. And maybe you don't win game 1. Maybe it just takes you a little bit to warm up. Are you able to kind of push that away? There's room to come back. And sometimes it does take a little bit of warming up. Okay, this is how our opponent plays. This is how we're going to adapt to them. We're just getting back into it, getting warmed up. but you have to be able to go in with that mentality that, yeah, we lost a couple rounds, yeah, we lost a game, but we're still in it. This is a new opportunity, a new round, a new game, a new map. We can still bring it to the end. And so I think both of these teams have the ability to do that, but will they have the mental fortitude? That's a whole nother issue.
And I think we'll be looking towards those players that have some sort of the further experience in this sort of setting to bring everyone else up with them. Your IGL, especially in CS:GO, is so important. You could have the worst mechanics ever out of anyone on planet Earth and be the best IGL and still take the game because you keep your team's mental, you're calling strats, and everything just goes your way. So I'm personally gonna look to the captains to be that focal point, lead from the front, and bring everyone else up around them. And I think from what we've seen in the team sheets, both of these captains have some sort of experience going in. And we're going to actually see the map bans here as well. So these are the maps available for this. The Dust being banned out and Nuke.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, we talked about maybe that might be an early pick, but I'm also not surprised that that was a ban, right? Because when you're talking about a map like Dust that comes down to a lot of fundamentals, or maybe you have lineups for these maps that have been out, if you don't feel like you're going to be as confident or as strong as your opponent, who again has the same ability to just go in there and fundamentally like run things down, you want to make that an early ban because you want to put yourself in as advantageous of a situation as possible. And if you don't think you can do that on a map like that, get that out of there. You don't want to leave it up to chance, and make sure you have stronger strats for the maps you do pick.
And we're gonna see the Nuke ban is I was sort of expecting it, because it's not a common map that you would practice. And if you're not as confident on how to play around the two elevated points, it can be very different comparatively to every other map. So I'm not surprised that Nuke isn't going to be played.
Yeah, me neither, all things considered. I am surprised that Inferno... Well, I guess I shouldn't say surprised. Inferno being the decider, I wouldn't quite call that a Dust or a Dust 2, but I do feel like, you know, I'd kind of put it up there. Maybe not quite with Mirage, but I feel like that's another one that you kind of learn early on, and you kind of get comfortable and have strats. But then again, like being the decider, again, if you're a team that's banning Dust, you don't have another ban, you're not going to pick that. You know, so I'm not too terribly surprised, I think, with how things are going. I am a little bit intrigued by Vertigo being 3. I feel like you either pick Vertigo first or you leave it for a decider.
It's a very interesting thing to put it smack bang in the middle.
Yeah.
But realistically, if you've lost the first two, maybe that Vertigo pick being there is maybe your saving grace. Maybe you're a incredible Vertigo team. We've seen a few, and we're going to load into the first map onto Anubis here. And we're going to see early aggression through mid. Oh, it's an early knife fight to set the score. And the backstab comes in. I think both teams having a little bit of fun here early in. Just to warm up a little bit. Get some of those nerves out early in.
You got it. I mean, again, this is very much like the first time these teams are kind of getting together in the servers, I think. As much fun as it is, all fun and games, you also kind of want to have a strong showing there.
So we're going to see University of Dundee on the T side to start. And obviously Edinburgh on CT. This is going to be personally for T side on this map specifically, you just got to push. There's not a lot of like fancy stuff going on first round anyway. As the crosses will come out, we see Cal here taking up position close to the wall. not 100%. Oh, he gets ran past, but 2 players come through. He gets traded out. Not a lot of damage coming up on his end, however, as the T side managing to poke through, and the CT just getting dropped as Alpha is managed to pick up one. Oh, I don't know really what happened there. He didn't even shoot his gun back. As Rogue gets taken out, it's a 1v3 situation on the first pistol round. P2000 in hand. He's trying to clear corners here. The plant goes down from the Dundee side as they do take this first round. The MVP going to Jam Irish in this first one, and it was it was like I said, that early aggression taking out those CT players that were bunkered in. And I'm not too sure about the decision to hold close with the USPS against 2 Glocks.
Listen, I am a USPS. I am a glazer of the USPS. I would glaze that gun any day. I don't care what range it is. I'm a big fan. But I mean, like you said, right? It's just pistol. It's just the first round. Doesn't mean as much. But I mean, you do want to start getting those rounds as early as possible. Because I mean, they do add up, right? You win this pistol, your economy's in a little bit of a better position. You should be able to hopefully win this next one if you have better weapons. We're gonna look at some nice replays from that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't isolate these fights right here, and definitely have the opportunity, but just it's tough to do in a 1v3. I get that.
And I do think we have some more issues on the tech side. Dying. The 2 AK bursts come out. He does get traded, but the MAC-10 comes out from Jam Irish, and that's an easy, quick round. Not really much you can do from the CT side there against a couple AKs.
Yeah.
There's not really much you can do. They did manage to pick up one, so one gun was dropped, and we're going to see Swift on very low money here as Jam Irish managed to trade him out for the new gun. The MAC-10, everybody has a gun in hand. Both teams do have an SMG on either side, so it's fairly even as T-side take the first fight here, but gets traded out through the smoke.
And some trade try to make their way onto this site here, but it looks like just not able to do that. Rogue
picking up one. Fairly even game so far. As the T-side Rogue taking out another, but gets traded out by Neo in that mid lane. You're gonna see them posturing up here for a take, and the SMG comes out, picks up one and the second onto the 2 AKs. He's gonna pick one of those up. Those AKs onto CT side, especially on a map like this, is very important into round 3. The economy for the T side is going to be in shambles a little bit. They're going to be able to afford to buy. But I think if you're CT side here, dropping those first 2 rounds, managing to take the third one is very important.
It is, and I'm also not surprised at the scoreline. I think that's how a lot of these early games kind of start. Is this 2-1?
A lot of mid-aggression here. Callum finding another early onto the same spot. Gets another on, just clearing this mid. Oh, Neo just misses out on the timing. Just to pick up one off the road. Doesn't get the spray transfer as Callum Wright managed to find 2 on that B side. Bomb carrier still up there. 1v4 gets traded out by Wright, and I think we're gonna have to go into a tech pause briefly here as there are more crashes.
I mean, it wouldn't be a CS2 broadcast without that, and ours just happened pretty early, and that's okay. Looks
we
like
are back. We are
here.
back into it fairly quickly. That's not too much of a big deal. And you see here the T side coming up just on pistols. Man, a blind run through the fire. All coming through mid as Cal picks up 3 early in. He's gonna run it in with the with the dual Berettas And he manages to pick up 4 Bs in this one. I mean, there's not really much you could do on the T side here. I think the mid push was an ambitious choice. Knowing that the CT side have been double stacking mid every round. But
Yeah.
pistol round, there's not really much you can do on a save against 4 AKs.
I mean, you can try, and they did, but flawless round coming out from UE. Not surprised there, but
again.
it's all about...
This sprays through the smoke. Doesn't go Cal's way this time as he gets traded up from behind him. Rogue backing up here. The B push looks likely. Here's the switch of the weapon through the smoke. As he's just waiting for that smoke to fade. Trying to catch any player lurking. There are a couple watching the door as he gets dinked with the Galil on the second. That double peek didn't go their way. And it's basically a free sight here for them. As the rotates do come out. One player on triangle for Edinburgh. As Swift Ninja finds Rogue in the mid. Forest plans to trade. And another 1v3 situation. Bomb being planted as the cover is coming out from... It's an ambitious attempt to claw that back there. He was caught out in a position where he had to either run for his life or commit to it. Chose to commit. He did get 2 guns out from the T side, and on a with the scoreline how it is, getting a few guns away is as good as anything realistically.
I mean, that was a good push and almost got that third one. Not quite, unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, at this point though, it couldn't really be closer at this
A-rush
point,
comes
3-3,
through.
but you have to make sure you don't allow that money, that economy to get too far away from you. 4-4, but they're making their way up here onto this A site.
That mid pressure is still there from Edinburgh, however, with 2 players lurking there. The bomb does go down onto the A site. 2 players lurking back towards their main choke. No one flanking them just yet. As Cal finds Jam Irish, just clearing their corners. 4v2 situation, and it's one on the high ground. Manages to find 2, but gets traded out. The T player still lurking in that choke. He's just playing for time here as the smoke does come out. The stick is there with the cover. Swing comes out and it's not quite enough.
And these rounds are so back and forth. And that's, again, it's the grand finals. No surprise there. Again, it is just the first half, though. There's an opportunity for things to look a little bit different once we switch sides. But, yeah, I mean, look at this. I mean, nice shots coming out. Again, good positioning. And that's really what it comes down to, too, is you have to have a little bit of that knowledge. As much as fundamentals are important, so is positioning. That's part of those fundamentals. You want to put yourself in the position where you can isolate these fights, you can create space for your team.
You see a lot of this from, as he just switches weapon at the wrong time and gets caught out there, and because he went down, the double cover wasn't there as Rogue gets swung by 2 people at the same time, and Dundee here having free mid pressure. They left the bomb outside the B door, so a rotate to A could be on the table. As that A lurk CT player does start to rotate over. And Edinburgh managing to find one. Will they see the bomb? I think they might have. As an early switch up there. They do have bomb control. And they do have that player on the lurk in a 3v3 situation. The Dundee do have point, but no bomb as the early shots come out here. Edinburgh now know they're coming from this point. No one's behind them. 1v3 here. That Edinburgh player needs to speed up on that rotate, but he doesn't know if anyone's still lurking mid. As 3 players are starting to push through this door. He could pick up a few, but he gets traded. And that lurk just a little bit too slow as he starts to creep up, and he does get caught out of position.
Yeah, you know, I didn't mind the play from Dundee. Dundee to kind of lurk there up mid, and then just kind of wait to see where we can find a little bit of space and impact, and then yeah, maybe re-hit A. I mean, in a different world, right? They would have seen 2 on B. They would have been able to pick a bomb, rotate A. No, only possibly 1 could be there. It just didn't quite go their way, and now
Edinburgh
everyone
here
just
could
trying to
get
clear
caught
as much
out.
as possible.
No one's checking mid though. As Cal pushes early pressure, sat inside the smoke. This is B player. You see a lot of this from Edinburgh, playing in pairs as Cal manages to find 2 in that smoke, bomb carrier included. Now both Dundee players are stranded on the other side of the map, as we see here. He's trying to creep up through the sewer. He's getting pincered from... He doesn't know there's a player behind him, but Edinburgh don't seem to be checking it either as he turns around. Doesn't see him though.
It does now. Now suddenly all down to Ricky. Doesn't have the weapon to work with. Cal's gonna find a clean shot onto that head and a near flawless round from Edinburgh.
We see this pressure from Edinburgh coming through mid with, I believe it's Cal and Rogue every round, just clearing these angles, and Cal manages to find 2 there. I think these Dundee players need to account for that mid pressure. It's every round, and they're not really accounting for it. They had a few rounds where they had players from either side watching mid for that push up, and every time they did it, they found at least 1. So I want to see a little bit more from them in that mid stage instead of just running out. You can see here, Cal is just a demon on that mid. He manages to find kills every round. And like we said before these games came out, these first map's going to be very close. Just come down to the pure mechanics. We're not seeing a lot of like fast pushes from Dundee. I think they had success coming A because the Edinburgh players are stacking only 1 player on A, 2 mid, 2 B. What do you want to see from Dundee coming into these next couple rounds?
Well, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there when you said this first map is coming down to a lot of mechanics. I want to see more coordinated team plays, maybe pushes, or even if you're gonna kind of default and see where you can kind of find space, that's fine. You have to be coordinated because you're putting yourself in positions where you're getting picked off and no trades can come through. I like that push up mid. The 1 round didn't go their way, but at least it was a little bit more coordinated. Looks like a little bit more coordinated this time, but it's Rogue finding the early pick, and now numbers again for Edinburgh.
However, it does get traded out as Neo finds another one with the 1 AK they had left on that team. Pushing on to B here, but there's still a couple Edinburgh players that get caught out. That flash hitting 3 of the Dundee players, leaving only just 1 behind. He does have an AK in hand, so this is very possible. Does have bomb as well as he starts to rotate. Doesn't choose to go mid, chooses to come back to B. These Edinburgh players just trying to clear these corners. He might catch him out here. Does he check the right way? The timing. None of these players are turning around. They just narrowly avoid one another. Are we going to see... He is rotating to A here for Dundee, but if you see on the minimap, so are the Edinburgh players. They all think they've cleared B site. Oh, gonna find 1 in mid. Did he see the other? I don't believe he did, as he starts to run A. 1v1 situation. He is fairly low on health. This Edinburgh player running back to B. Doesn't realize he's gone A. Does now. He starts to rotate over through mid. Oh, there's about to be a clash as both players peek at the same time, and the Edinburgh player manages to catch him. Probably the closest round we've seen so far from these teams, and it came from almost the save round from Dundee.
No, I mean, like you said, very, very close, and Dundee didn't have a lot of weapons in hand, so if they're able to do that, they played better together. They made use of that timeout and the time they had to coordinate a little bit better, that's what they need to keep doing. Imagine what they could do now with full weapons, not quite the same utility loadout maybe as Edinburgh, but that's okay if you can put yourself in positions again. We
are
can
going
get
to
these
see a
trades
few
off.
Galils as the Edinburgh player just tanking that molly damage through mid just to get an early push up. Does get a pick onto Neo, and the miss from right B with just one player on. We see these Dundee players not having bomb, just playing map control. We might see Dundee notice that no one is currently on A. The bomb does get picked up B side, however. Playing very reserved this round. They don't want to throw the guns the limited guns they have away this round, and we are going to see a rotation as that Dundee player has scouted out A and told his team there is no one here. Quickly rotate. He might find one here. Gets the pick onto the Edinburgh player, as I think this is a fairly comfortable round for Dundee if they manage to posture up and get bomb down.
Looks like they will be able to get bomb down. 2v4 retake.
Maybe
Dundee
these
did a
Edinburgh
much
players...
better job.
I don't think these Edinburgh players want to.
I
they're
think
happy
it's
to give
I
this
think it's a
round.
call to save, right? Look at the money left in the bank. Not a lot. It'll be tough to kind of buy up, but here you can bring 2 rifles in the next round, cutting their losses, knowing that a 2v4 working against the time. They have 1 kit, but
They
again,
are
they're all
still
the way
a
on the
round
other
up.
side of the map.
They're a round up as well. Giving 1 round to keep your economy somewhat stable is a fairly good shout, as Dundee player managed to find him in spawn.
Oh.
Not the player with the kit, however. It's not too much of a loss, but it is a little bit disheartening to be killed that late after the round.
I mean, that's rough, right? If you're making the call to save, you want to be able to save that weapon for the next round. I think they were expecting that flush up, but again, when you're Dundee and you have the numbers, why not kind of hunt? Because now look, they have the 1 sole rifle they were able to bring, and it looks like buy 1 more, but again, money's not looking too good, and that's what we've been seeing. This flip-flop of rounds from these teams mean no one's really had a good handle on that economy.
So
And so you gotta be strategic in these saves, but Dundee make their way all the way up A.
Rogue making his way behind. Can he find someone here? No one's looking his way as they're too busy watching the spawn. Managed to find 1 and another. Doesn't manage to get the 3rd, but does get a chunk of damage onto them. That could bring them back into this round as a 3v3 situation, as Zenix takes down Jam Irish, and now Ferris finds another. The call's being made. He is on top of the box, rotates off. And a very nice pick by Neo to close out this half. 6-6. Very even so far, as we see the scoreboard there. And what do you expect going into this second?
Yeah, I mean, so it's always hard, especially on this first map, for me to make a judgment at a 6-6, because on one hand, I mean, it can't get any closer than that, right? It's literally 6-6 or even here, and could there be a potential OT? Maybe. Then on the other hand, you know, a lot of times when we see the 6-6 half, right, teams swap sides and one team is just so much stronger on their other half here. So
we're going to see a B push here from Edinburgh. So, choosing to go in that inside, tanks the molly to get a pick, manages to get on site. This Dundee player just getting overwhelmed on this side by these Glocks. 1 pick coming out from Dundee, as they're going to just look for picks here. Try and use the range of this USBS, but not manage to find it. Rogue actually picking 1 up. We didn't see it, but does get that 1 tap onto the spawn player. And an early round into the second half here, and I think that they'll come out swinging again quickly into this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think pistols are so important because, yeah, at the end of the day, right, it's just a round. You didn't invest too much into that, but it jump starts that economy and that momentum that you need when you talk about your funds for the next one. Because look, you're Dundee, you win the pistol, you can buy up here. you should make a pretty easy time of this round if you don't, of course, maybe give rifles into the hands of your opponents.
You see it.
Site is clear though.
You see the Edinburgh team manages to get onto point without any sort of contention. One player does get taken out. That is a gun on the floor for Dundee. Rogue manages to pick up 2 through the smoke. Sees the feet of another one through the bottom of it. And those new smokes in CS2, man, you never know when you're truly out of them. It's Neo here. Maybe just trying to get an exit frag. 2. Doesn't find one there. Can he get a gun out? Doesn't manage it, as all these Edinburgh players manage to filter out. Managing to keep 3 rifles and an SMG up is, I would say, a very successful round for them.
I'd say so.
We do see Cow get dropped through the smoke there, failing on the spray. It was only a Galili drop, so not too much of a financial burden on him. As the mid push through, the flashes come over, the molly's not landing quick enough as the smokes weren't landing either, as right pushes up through mid. Both players crossing each other, caught with the smoke in your hand. As these B players now getting traded out. 3v2 on this side. And this Alferis just dominating this B site, as it's a 1v4 situation as bomb gets planted on B side. You don't have a gun, it might be worth trying to get one and getting out with one. But you get spotted out and one player pushing through mid behind him. Yeah. As it's cleaned up. And the scoreboard now 3 rounds in favor of Edinburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Dundee, you really had to win at least one of those. Things are going to be a little bit harder for them, especially when you look at your money, when you look at the utility you can buy, and when you look at how these rounds have been going. It's been a little bit tough. Now there's still time to kind of pull it together. They could pull off a thrifty. It'd be great in terms of that economy that Edinburgh has built up, but it's tough when they have the weapons.
He is a menace in this mid portion of the map. He finds a 3rd. Going for eco frags here. He's trying to pad his stats a little bit. You can't really blame him. Against these pistols, you kind of can just swing, and you have such an advantage that there's not really much Dundee can do. This B player, the bomb planted A, he's going to get cornered between 4 players. 10-6 the scoreline in favour of Edinburgh. And if you're Edinburgh here, you're comfortable. You don't want to give up anything. You have a lot of money in the bank, and Dundee not being able to full buy still for everyone on their team. Only 2 kits on hand, an SMG on 1 player.
And that's why it's so important to get those wins. Of course, another DC classic, I think, Counter-Strike 2 gameplay, but that's why it's so important to get some of these early round wins on board, because look, okay, only 4 rounds of the second half have passed, but look at the momentum that Edinburgh has. Look at the money in the bank that they have. I mean, they can afford to lose this round and the next round and still buy.
We have missed a portion of this first round, however. Dundee picking up a kill onto 1, but it's a 3v2 situation with bomb planted on A. Manages to pick up 1 onto Cal on the mid. Switches it back to it's now a 2v1 and a clinical retake from Dundee in this time. And that's what you need. You need to make these plays to be able to bring it back. You see now their money being in a more stable situation. You can now buy everyone a gun instead of having 1 player with no armor or 1 player with an SMG. that retake from Swift there, just clinical. Put on a masterclass there. The molly goes up to cover mid. 3 players pushing through mid on the side of Dundee. Mollies do come out. Manages to find one through the smoke. Neo finding one on the other mid player trying to cover the cross, and they are pincering him here. And an ace from the side of Dundee. Maybe their IG hours said some words. We'll have to wait and see on that part. But bringing two rounds back, and now if you look at the Edinburgh economy, you can still buy, yes, but if you lose another one here, the economy has swung back the other way, and now you've dropped 2 points that you can afford to lose, but you don't. It's not an ideal situation.
Yeah. Well, and that's why we said, you know, winning those 4 in a row, huge for the momentum, because yeah, they did just lose 2, and look, they can still buy again. But yeah, I mean, Dundee just really kind of turning up. Now, we said, you know, that first map, right, might take some teams a little bit to get comfortable and get into it. Ooh.
Managed to find one here.
Just able to find that one, and now it looks like Edinburgh weren't liking what Dundee were playing with. They're going to get that bomb down, and they're going to get into this post-plant position. It's going to be hard in a 3v5 to retake site here.
Yes, it will be, especially with this MP9 in hand as well, as Edinburgh have been pushing onto A very successfully. I think they haven't really tried B since the first couple rounds on this half. As Zevix comes through, does get picked up by the MP9 player. The MP9 player will get an AK out of it. I think they're giving up this point here. But he does get taken down, doesn't get out with that AK. But however, Cal and Alferis don't get out either. 2 players from either side living. Everybody can buy. It's going to be a full buy on both sides of the cards this time. And
it's going to be a full buy, but Edinburgh inching closer and closer to match point.
We still
3
do have a
rounds,
Mac
Dundee
10
down.
on this side of Edinburgh, though.
We do, but I mean, they could have afforded a different weapon, right? Something tells me they're cooking something with that Mac 10.
Alferis, there we are, cooking with that Mac 10.
Cooking with it.
Managed to find one. Rogue finding another onto Swift there, and the CT side, this early aggression, and we do see a crash. I believe that's just from the spectators. The round will continue. I expect to see Edinburgh take that round, knowing that they had a 5-3 lead. And there we are. They didn't even drop a player.
Yeah. Cooking with an SMG, and the thing is, right? Not only that, you don't have to invest really into a weapon, and you can pick up one off your opponent, recover that weapon. Yeah, and that's a little bit easier to work with, right? You're on match point now. Looks like finally Sniper coming out for the side of Dundee. Maybe that's just the answer to their prayers.
I mean, realistically, it's make or break. You got to spend your money or lose it. So, Alferis finding one onto Neo, but however gets traded out. Alferis is now dead. This B pressure now, as the rotate comes through mid, they will probably check it. Gets one pick onto the mid player. The AWP is there. It's a 2v3 situation, but that AWP's still in play. It could swing this fight. 3v1. Gets one. Swift Ninja.
Find 2 more.
Trying to find that bomb plant. He knows where he is. He saw his
Sound
back. Finds him.
Sees number 2.
Switches over to the USPS. Switches to the M4 that he dropped. However, Cal finding the rotation behind him, doesn't quite find him, and takes him out for map 1. Edinburgh here, seeming fairly comfortable coming into the second half of that map. The first half a little bit more brawly. It could have gone either way, obviously being 6-6 at the half. Can't really tell the difference between the two teams, but Edinburgh seem very confident on T side.
Oh yeah, I mean they just kind of. I mean, look, they only allowed Dundee to get what 2 rounds total the entire second half. They just look so comfortable, and part of it is we talked about like, and you gotta get comfortable, you gotta get warmed up, and we also talked about the difference that switching sides can make. Because you're right. I mean, on T they just sort of seem to have everything together. What I like that I'm seeing from Dundee though, we saw this that first half, but we really saw this here is, you know, when they took the time to kind of figure things out and get into it, they had really good plays and really good rounds. So I think Dundee were just a little bit less consistent this map, but I still think it could be a pretty good grand final series.
And you see here the replays coming out, just the pure highlights that have swung that Mac that Mac SMG play there, winning that round out for them. These pistol rounds are so important, especially on a map like this. The T side actually have some sort of an advantage depending on where they go because it's so like a confined space. Highlight for me in that game was the Callum Rogue mid push every round being so successful, finding at least one, sometimes 2 or 3, and getting that many kills so early in a round can basically just win it for you.
Yeah, it really can, and the whole point is you get the numbers advantage early, and it makes it that much harder to either push onto site or defend site, you know, given it's hard when you don't have the numbers there. But yeah, I mean, Edinburgh looked pretty good, and I'm excited to see what they're going to bring on Mirage next.
And I think we will be going to a break while the players get ready for this next map. We'll see what we go into next.
lesson every mate gotta miss. I can't even think of a man that had me terrified. We got options, pick your poison or just pick a side. Pick a side, pick your poison. Pick a side, pick your poison. Pick a side, pick your poison. Ain't no picking on me, y'all about to get me going. Yeah, pick a side, pick your poison. Pick a side, pick your poison. Pick a side, pick your poison. Ain't no picking on me, y'all about to get me going. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing you gon' learn about me, ain't nobody putting word like me. Can't drip, can't sauce like me. Whipping it up, I'm a major key. I am the one, not the two or the three. Get on my level if you wanna be better than ever. I got what I need. Pushing the limit, that's how it's gon' be. I promise I won't take it easy. It's only right that I come with that greasy. It's only right that I give him that pressure. Just watch, you don't have to believe me. I'ma do my thing. Watch me do my thing. I'ma do my thing. I did not come to play. I ain't got no limit, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm limitless. I ain't got no limit, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm limitless. They can't stop me now, yeah, that's right. Cause I'm limitless. It's my turn right now. Watch me work, yeah, I'm limitless. I ain't got no limit, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm limitless. I ain't got no limit, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm limitless. They can't stop me now, yeah, that's right. Cause I'm limitless. It's my turn right now. Watch me work, yeah, I'm limitless. I know what I want and you know I'ma get it. I'm not even close to the finish, just scratching the surface. Turning my L's into winnings. I've been the one since the beginning. No days off, I go so hard in the paint. Put in that work and it's paying off quick. I left no crumbs, you know I ate. I'm pushing the limit like get out the way. I am the one, we're not one and the same. Feeling brand new when you're not in my lane. Count me back cause I'm breaking the chain. I woke up the beast and I'm ready to slay. I'm in the zone, they can't get in my head. Know what I want and I'm really ahead. Got what it takes to be one of the best. Watch how I move, yeah, I'm limitless, yeah. I'ma do my thing. Watch me do my thing. I'ma do my thing. I did not come to play. I ain't got no limit, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm limitless. I ain't got no limit, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm limitless. They can't stop me now, yeah, that's right. Cause I'm limitless. It's my turn right now. Watch me work, yeah, I'm limitless. I ain't got no limit, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm limitless. I ain't got no limit, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm limitless. They can't stop me now, yeah, that's right. Cause I'm limitless. It's my turn right now. Watch me work, yeah, I'm limitless.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. We're just getting ready to head into Game 2 of our Grand Finals for Counter-Strike 2 with University of Edinburgh versus University of Dundee. But before we head into Mirage, let's recap what we just missed there over on Anubis. Now, it was a pretty close first half here, Berg. 6-6, but second half, well, that told a different story, didn't it?
I think we've seen that Edinburgh are very comfortable on the T side. Maybe just on that map, given, but when they have those AKs in hand, it is so dangerous to peek them because I don't know if you saw they were in pairs every fight. So even if you pick up one, you're getting traded out. And if you're not in a pair as well, and we didn't see that as much from Dundee, they were a little bit more spaced out and they didn't get those trades straight off the rip. And it gave Edinburgh such a lead into every round they went into. Obviously, that map is very brawly in that middle part of the map. Maybe it plays to Edinburgh's strengths. We'll have to see. Mirage is a little bit of a map where there's a little bit more strategy to where you're going. You kind of pick somewhere, and you have a set route to take.
Yeah, I mean, they're an ancient, 13-8, especially after 6-6 half. I mean, you said it best. Edinburgh just looked comfortable, especially on that T side. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct. We talked about how important just playing together and being able to put yourself in a position for those trades are. And Dundee, when they did that, they had great I mean, they had some great rounds, but they weren't consistent enough. Spacing wasn't right. They weren't playing together, and ultimately that kind of was their downfall. So hopefully for them, they'll be able to clean that up here on Mirage. I think they can, but will they? That's a different story.
We did see they did bring the 2 rounds they did win on that CT side. They came from behind, so they do have the ability to flip a point and win those rounds that they're coming from behind. It's just they don't want to put themselves in that situation where they have to do that to begin with. So I feel like you have to play a little bit safer. Maybe you give up points to keep more of your team alive for that retake.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. Obviously, like I said, Mirage is a more well-known map. It's more played. If you're playing on your own, you're picking Mirage. Realistically.
Yeah, I also feel like Mirage is kind of that map where when everyone starts to learn smoke lineups, I feel like everyone's like, I want to do that on Nuke, but everyone learns lineups on Mirage, and I feel like it's kind of like a more compact dust almost, where like that mid control is so important, but you can also kind of get away and cheat it a little bit. You know, it's not like what we just saw where, you know, they're just given space mid and then they push, right? You have to worry about window there, and it's still different paths, but I feel like it's easier to hold maybe some of those choke points if you're holding a site, and maybe that's what Dundee needs.
Dundee need to make the most of these CT rounds. Being a 6-6 half is all fair and well, but when you're on a CT sided map and you're going into the T side at a disadvantage, you don't really want to be playing Edinburgh's game, and we've seen Edinburgh be incredible on T side and CT side. I think if you're Dundee, you kind of have to play a little bit more risky. I think.
Yeah.
Play for those trades. Play a little bit more aggressive, possibly, on that CT side.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think if they can be more aggressive, not over aggressive. You know, we still want to make sure they're playing together and they're getting those trades when needed. I mean, if you can get in there and get yours, and a trade doesn't need to come out right, even better, you have those numbers, but at least putting yourself in a position for the trade. And you're right, I mean, when they had some of their funky plays, good flanks, and good positioning on the rounds they did win, it's the rounds they didn't that they really kind of need to look at under microscope and be like, okay, like, what's going on? But yeah, I mean, you know, I think Mirage is a different feel, a different map, and you know, I think they can bring it back.
Realistically, it's only the first map. They still have plenty of opportunities to bring it back. Maybe it's the first map nerves got to them a little bit. Maybe it's just not their most favorable map. We might see a completely different Dundee.
Yeah, definitely. Probably will see a different Dundee, I'm hoping. But who's to say, really? I think we are going to go to a brief break and figure, again, some tech issues out. But I think the game is already underway or close to being underway, so it shouldn't be too long. We're going to figure that out, and we'll get right back to you guys.
After I get it, I reinvest. After I get it, I reinvest. People wanna talk that talk in reality. You have not seen me in action. You think the come up comes overnight. You ain't behind the scenes. Trust me, these things don't just happen. No shade at Gerald, but G's don't come easy when you tryna eat out producing and rapping. I read that contract you sent me to sign, but excuse me, I can't help myself, I'm just laughing. Hey, you tryna cut out a piece of my pie, and I asked you politely, what's it that you offer me? Yeah, I produce all my own beats, and I have no intention of losing my publisher. Yeah, independent individual, boy, I've been eating off passive residuals. Yeah, let's be professional. Thanks for your time, but I had to decline at that principle. I've been scheming up a plan. Hey, I've been saving all I can. Hey, you could call me David Ramsey. The way I handle these bands. Hey,
ain't saying that I'm rich, cause if I'm honest, I've never been. But when I look at all these other kids, I feel just a little bit ahead of them. You should know the business is competitive. There's a lot of people that I'm better than. Even veterans ain't got the knowledge I do. I've been reinvesting all I ever spent. Stop pretending like you poppin'. Who been out here making profit? Told my mama that I got this. I wonder if she noticed what my job is. I don't know how I'ma make it, but I know no matter what, I'm finna find a way. All my homies finna eat and I ain't letting no one on my team look at an empty plate. Yeah. Went from a boy to a man. Ay, every day been making plans. Ay, they don't really understand. Ay, gotta look out for the family. I won't fall for any scam. Yeah, only worried about the fans. Yeah, I won't compromise the brand. Yeah, I've been saving up the bands. Whoa.
After I get it, I reinvest. After I get it, I reinvest. After I get it, I reinvest. Stack and put it back in it. After I get it, I reinvest. After I get it, I reinvest. After I get it, I reinvest. Stack and put it back in it. Rappers spending money in some really funny ways, man. I promise you ain't really getting paid. Yeah, show a couple bands flexing on the Instagram, and nobody getting fans that way. Yeah, well you really dumb if you spending all your funds on some clothes and your tape need work. Yeah, you ain't gonna stand if you ain't a businessman, man. I promise you the plan ain't gonna work. Yeah, rappers spending money in some really funny ways, man. I promise you ain't really getting paid. Yeah, show a couple bands flexing on the Instagram, and nobody getting fans that way. Yeah, well you really dumb if you spending all your funds on some clothes and your tape need work. Yeah, you ain't gonna stand if you ain't a businessman, man. I promise you the plan ain't gonna work. Yeah.
I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I want the money, the power, respect, and I heard you know so-and-so, you not a threat, cause I really know so-and-so, they like my family, so they go pretend that they cool till they bust at your motherfucking chest. I'm getting gutter, my flow been like butter, my check in the bank, they see the number. All of my haters feel one of two ways, really upset or they show some respect. I can't even think about it, I've been up, so read about it, no beat around it, straight to it, no ring around it. You coming for me, we'll see about it, we'll never see it when I keep my feet up. 100 meters where I run the fee up, and go ka-ching and on a pia. I had to re-up on a reel, so you stay defeated, and put it back into the bit, cause I don't really need it. I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I had to put all their egos in check. You're not entitled to anything else. I get 10 years of this under my belt. Your art isn't art, they don't feel it, and nobody hears it. Initiative stay on the shelf. Your ego done got in the way. It gotta die today. It gotta go. You should be happy I lighten the load. The weight of your arrogance, heavy as stone. I make an appearance, they already know. That chip on your shoulder gon' crumble and fold, yeah. It's not a secret that you have been fearing the shit that I'm on. So you back to the brag and the boast. But I'm in a class of my own. I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check.
Don't know the time, I'm letting go. I wanna find someone to love. I feel alive, I think you know. We're getting down, we're getting low. We're getting down, we're getting low. We're getting down, we're getting low. Don't know the time, I'm letting go.
in any game, in any map, and we're not going to see what adjustments came through, and we're not going to see what was working for this team, maybe what wasn't for the other team. And that does kind of put us at a disadvantage, especially when we're kind of analyzing the second half. But at any rate, I mean, I think once we're in and we see these teams, I think we'll get a good feel for how things are going. And remember, I mean, Edinburgh did just come off of that 13-8 win, which was pretty decisive, especially once they swapped sides. So mentally, if you're Dundee, you're going, okay, well, this is a best of 5. We have to win 3. We already lost game 1. We didn't do really well on the last half of the game, and now we're in this next map. And if Edinburgh are genuinely up, right, 7-1, they have 6 rounds on them. You know, I can't imagine your mental state is kind of the best. And I think when you kind of get put in situations like that, there's 2 things that can happen. You can either like rise out of that desperation and be like, okay, everything counts, or you kind of get scared. And so we'll see how that kind of affects the rest of the series.
If it is Dundee on the other end of the 7-1, I want to see, I believe their captain is Neo, bring his team back. I want to see that IGL behavior where they stay cool, they stay level-headed. Okay, guys, we're behind. How do we bring this back? Not just, okay, go do stuff and hope for the best. It's still possible. Realistically, yeah, even if they lose this map, they can still win.
They can. Anyone can at this point, but
I'm hoping we'll be able to see some gameplay of this Mirage map. I really want to. But hopefully we can get that sorted. In the meantime, obviously, we can talk about the previous game as much as we can. I want to shout out a couple of players. I've mentioned them before. Cal and Rogue for Edinburgh in that middle of the map, last map.
Mm-hmm.
Alphase as well, and White, very impactful in that last map. They were fairly even on kills, but map control wise, they were just incredible.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that really shown, yes, in maybe the stats at the end of the game, but when you talk about like the impact that the way they played had on specific rounds and ultimately the entire game, I mean, I think that's really important to kind of look at. I mean, like you said, I mean, Cal with those multi-frags early in the round, Rogue too, especially, you know, there were a couple rounds where we're like, oh, well, they could full buy. I'm seeing some SMGs come out, but like they could have bought. They had a plan. It worked. And, you know, I think when you have the confidence to play like that, it really kind of shines through and allows you to really, I mean, take control of a map and set the pace of a game.
But on the flip side as well, it's not like Dundee didn't have anyone that were trying to claw them back. Obviously, I mentioned Neo before being the IGL, getting a lot of picks early.
Definitely. I couldn't tell if it was you or me because my Wi-Fi has been doing that too. As long as it's not the players once we hop in. But
I have loaded back.
Yeah, there we go. Berg is finally back. I thought it was me. I did. I was like, oh no. That's esports, baby. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Dundee did have stand-up players, and I think when we looked at that first half, I mean, it was very back and forth, I thought, and yeah, you know, it definitely was different once they swapped sides. But I mean, the control that they had, especially when they played together, Berg, I think they really stood out.
Yeah, impactful in a way. In those 2 rounds, they did manage to claw back on that CT side. Obviously, we saw Swift come out, you kill Jam Iron to pick up quite a few as well. It can be anyone's game, basically.
I can. And I think, like you said, there's standout players on both sides. So what can they contribute to the game? And also, you have to make sure that each play is impactful, in kind of is deliberate. You really can't afford in the grand finals at this stage to be making any sort of mistakes. And that's not to say that I think there were a lot of mistakes necessarily in game one. I think it's just, what can we learn from game one to take into game two from both sides? Because I do think it's easy to say Edinburgh, yeah, they clearly were the winners. They ran away with that. But I think Dundee, when they looked good, they looked great. And that is something that if I'm Edinburgh, I'm a little worried about, and I want to put a stop to that.
And we will see when we eventually get back into this second map, if depending on which side it is that's taking this early lead, if it is Edinburgh, I feel like they start to get confident, and that could be a good place if you manage to control it well. It can also be a dangerous situation if they do end up taking this second map. If they go into the third and needing to finish it off, that pressure as well can be game changing.
And it's like you said, when we first got to look at the maps, right? If you're Dundee and you lose this map here, could Vertigo just be like the reset you need to bring it back? And I think a map like Vertigo, especially, coming off your second loss of Mirage, I think that could exactly be the map to kind of reset that. And I think your play style as a team is much different on Vertigo than it is on Mirage, right? And I think there's kind of different tiers of maps. Some are a little bit closer together, and then some are a little bit, I don't want to say funky, but when you're kind of comparing them as a whole, I think it, when I'm picturing how Dundee played, I think Vertigo could definitely, I can see going their way. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a pretty decisive victory there. I think it'll depend how Mirage goes once we finally get in, and I think it'll depend, one, are they able to bring back Mirage? Two, if they can't, how are they feeling? Do they think they have it in them to reverse sweep, or have they mentally given up? I think those are two keys.
Yeah, I've said this in previous streams, not even just for this game, in any tournament situation. You could have the best aim in the world, but if your mental's not there, and you're not confident in what you're doing, you're not confident in your team, maybe the pressure's getting to you. That can impact not only your mechanics, but your decision making and your just morale overall. Morale is a massive thing in esports, especially CSGO, with it being so snowbally, and if you start getting on a few losing runs, it's hard to claw it back. So if you can keep your mental strong, even if you're losing, you can. All it takes is a few rounds to go your way.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's also going to be the job of the IGLs, the captain, like you said, Neo. What's he able to do, and how can he kind of round up his team and make sure their mental's in check, they're not getting tilted, they're not getting nervous, they're not getting or sometimes on the flip side, right, there's two things that can happen when you're kind of put against the wall. It's you're nervous, you're afraid to make any mistakes, and you play too passively, and you just allow them to swing and peek you and free fire you every round. Or you're like, okay, we need to turn this around, and you get a little too over aggressive, right? So you need to make sure you're playing how you need to be playing. You can put those losses, because again, remember, okay, yeah, if you're Dundee, we just lost map one, okay, that's fine, whatever, we're on a new map now. What happened on map one doesn't matter. Can we take what happened and learn from it? If we can't, put it out of your mind, because right, the score resets each map. The score resets. You have the opportunity to bring it back. And yeah, I think that a key factor in a lot of these tournament settings, right, that people don't always consider, is the mentality. Like you said, as a player, totally different. You have to make sure that you can show up there. It's different than queuing at home. or where there's no stake involved. Yeah, like anytime you are grinding to hit a higher level, right? Yeah, okay, there's some stakes involved. You'll get tilted, but it's different than a tournament where you have to show up and you can't afford to make any mistakes. You can't queue next, right? This is it.
Yeah, and I think Edinburgh will have to keep on the pressure that they've already been building. And Dundee will have to weather the storm a little bit early on and then slowly build up their comeback. I don't think it will be a case of, okay, it's time for a comeback now. It'll be a slow burn comeback. They might take 2 rounds and lose one. It'll be a few centimeters instead of the whole race.
Yeah, you don't have to win every battle, but you do have to win the war. And I think that's something to remember when you're in this game. You don't have to win every round, but you want to win the game. So if it's a round you don't win, okay, well let's take a quick check. What did we do? Did we take guns out of their hands? Were we able to save a weapon? And how does that impact the next round? How does shaving off maybe some of their buildup of funds, how does that help us? How does having this weapon in the next half, how does that help us? We have an op, we're holding window, we want that mid control. Okay, well, if you can save that operator, I mean, look at that last round we just had, right? That op put in a ton of work. That was close. I mean, that we very well could have been looking at 9-12 and they could have stayed in it again. Unfortunately, not quite this time. They were playing a bit of ring around the rosy, but that doesn't mean you can't have impactful rounds like that in the next map. And so I think it's going to come down to how can we kind of adapt to what they're throwing at us, what they're playing. Okay, they had mid presence every round. How are we putting a stop to that here on a new map? And there's a lot of ways to do that. What choke points are we holding? And it's hard. We're not in the game yet, and I know we're waiting to get in there, but I do think there's a lot of different ways and a lot of scenarios this can go. But remember, this is a battle for all of Scotland. There's a lot riding on this, and I don't think Dundee is quite ready to give up just yet.
Realistically, you're only one map down that we know. So it can all change. We will sadly have to go back to the break short right now, just as we make our final preparations to get into the game again. And we'll head over to a break now.
jagged and man's abundant. The point of the road was being and rugged. Hushing, I'm applying no pants in London. The products are not being scared of some judgment. Gotta stay in the cut, cut you off if you ain't making the cut. Couldn't tell you who the hell is behind us. You start to forget when you stay in front of it's up. And it's up for grabs, no remorse of who I'm taking it from. Numbers I give on my scoreboard is the only form of us staying in touch. That's saying enough. It's time to receive for all of the favors I've done. Too late for y'all to switch teams. Everybody getting big leagues. Product flying out the shelf. What's in store for us? Known to hit a hole in one. Look at the crowd and shoulder shrug. Shots are limited. I'm scared mango with the golden gun. Posted up, ready for whatever, boy. You know what's up. Time's close, I whittled them down. Sticking to them by sticking around. The gang all on Iwo Jima got one flag and it's sticking the ground. Setting up shop. Think I got the message across. Came for the titles, impressive to watch. We played the levels and let them in jazz. Shout out to Steve. The boy getting love from the harsh critics. Strives take me bi-weekly. The time you keep taking it further. You aren't finished and I gotta listen. Any son of believing and see that I'm actually breathing and doing it real time. Love to pull an idea out thin air. Act on it and profit in real life. If we not aligned, don't present me a dotted line. Yeah, I'm a QB, but I ain't handing on nothing for someone to monetize. And it goes to the birds too. Can't give it a time of a dollar, so cut her eyes. They get X'd out for they had the potential to be my ex. I know how to plays, I'm a seasoned vet. Yeah, always showing up. Known to hit a hole in one. Look at the crowd and shoulder shrug. Shots are limited. I'm scared mango with the golden gun. Posted up, ready for whoever, boy, you know what's up. Time's close, I whittled them down. Sticking to them by sticking around. The gang all on Iwo Jima got one flag and it's sticking the ground. Setting up shop. Think I got the message across. Came for the titles, impressive to watch. We played the levels and let them in jocks. Time's close, I whittled them down. Sticking to them by sticking around. The gang all on Iwo Jima got one flag. Yeah.
match this work. Feel like 10,000 days. Bros in court with the A-list model. Why's that? Cause she breached the NDA. Just had a call with Irish Jack. Man don't rap but he lets it spray. 2 leg ones came through, they're twinning, so I'm gloved up like Crane. Sweet one just wanna waste my time, babes. What's the ETA? I like my girl on time, that's period. Nothing but stress when you say you're late. Girl, you can get new nails and bags, but when I call cabs, this underlay. I know ain't my name on that plastic arm, man, stop acting, babe. Yeah, what? Man, snowflake, bitch, she likes NWAs. Future plan by your mum and dad, but she's out here testing fate. Old man when her son and Lori's got brains. She wanna break the law, my rock chains. Growing up, put her on the right road. Now man, she's out here mad on the mains. Hey, bare clout and nicotine that you're craving. Out in libertine, feeling faded. Bare problems, man, you've been creating. When I'm in the studio, when you call my phone, you don't stop, man, you got no patience. Tryna make that paper, money come first and pleasure come later. I showed her love, now she thinks she a part of me. Going mad on my gram, babe, don't be a drama queen. Bad to give a man city girl vibes, but I'm in the field like Harlan G. She want Prada, shoulda do nada, man. That one go far with me. High for the A, but I sing to your girl and take her away. Something like Drake, like if you're hearing this now, by now it's already too late. Calling me out, come to the clash, your girls, they're promoting my mixtape. Big mixed race, big boy with a belly, I'm heavy, so you don't know me overweight, yeah. Yeah, she what a man bought me, committing that's unrealistic. Nah, ain't part of my plan, see me, I'm done with these bitches. Say this year's all about money, fuck the matrix and its glitches. Used to see her drive my whip, well I guess my perspective shifted. Yeah, she what a man bought me, committing that's unrealistic. Nah, ain't part of my plan, see me, I'm done with these bitches. Say this year's all about money, fuck the matrix and its glitches. Used to see her drive my whip, well I guess my perspective shifted. I showed her love, now she thinks she a part of me. Going mad on my gram, babe, don't be a drama queen. Bad to give a man city girl vibes, but I'm in the field like Harlan G. She want Prada, shoulda do nada, man. That one go far with me. I showed her love, but I don't really trust these hoes. We ain't on the same path in life, so I leave that one for the roads. For the streets. She acting like she unique, next week she'll open up for the bros, and then act like nobody knows. That one go far with me. I showed her love, now she thinks she a part of me. Going mad on my gram, babe, don't be a drama queen. Bad to give a man city girl vibes, but I'm in the field like Harlan G. She want Prada, shoulda do nada, man. That one go far with me. I showed her love, now she thinks she a part of me. Going mad on my gram, babe, don't be a drama queen. Bad to give a man city girl vibes, but I'm in the field like Harlan G. She want Prada, shoulda do nada, man. That one go far with me.
Why they don't move like gangsters? Why do they walk like gangsters? Why they don't move like gangsters? Why do they act like gangsters? Why they don't move like gangsters? Why do they rap like gangsters? Why they don't move like gangsters?
Change don't change like it used to. Who runs the roost round here? The coop's gone clear. Got the heart from the bass to the snare, but the word is what's keeping them here. Word to my peers. The work don't stop till the top. Think it's resting, but we're not. I spread the message and it's love. I get the S and the P and the R from above. I see them restless with the keys and the palm for the bum.
Hello, welcome back. After a long break there, due to tech issues and a whole match being played behind, without us being able to see it, without you guys being able to see it, Edinburgh did manage to take that map. It was 13-7?
13-5,
13-5. That was it. So an utter domination on that second one. We kind of were sort of predicting it while we were talking in the break, but we were talking as well about that Vertigo pick as well. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely think you were right early on when we talked about map picks, where if a team is 2-0, Vertigo might be their chance to turn it around. I 100% agree. I think if there's ever a time for Dundee to come back, it's going to be on this map. Like, if I'm looking at that map, well, and maybe, you know, let's say they take Vertigo, that might be the kind of like confidence, a little boost of momentum they need to maybe reverse sweep, but it's going to be tough. Edinburgh looking so dominant. We didn't even get to see. So we don't even know if they look dominant, but we know they were dominant. And of course, they had a pretty good map one we got to see. So, but yeah, I'm just excited that we'll get to actually watch this map.
yeah, not much can be done. Obviously, with tech issues, things happen. So, unfortunately, no one will. That game will go a mystery. We know the scoreline, and we'll get to see probably the confidence from Edinburgh going into this third one. So
yeah,
I think we're gonna look back at that first game, the one game we did actually get able to see.
Yeah, I mean, and I do think it was a really good game. You know, very close. Oh yeah, it was close, but one team should have ran away with this side. I mean, it was back and forth. Ended 6-6 here, but it was really here in the second half that Edinburgh just really seemed to feel comfortable. They won the first 4 in a row, and then I mean, just continued to look strong. And yeah, that was tough. That's a tough ask for Dundee, but obviously they weren't able to do it again on Mirage, so they really have to clean things up here on Vertigo.
Yeah, and in these clips here, you can see a common theme of certain players being the difference in every fight. Like, there we have Neo, the captain, taking that one, and then we have Callum Rogue in that one, and it was a bit of a domination in the second half of this one, and we were talking about this mid pressure that they were applying. I would have loved to see that on Mirage, but and see how that changed. But both teams had chances in this first game to claw something back and make the difference. And in every single one of these clips, you can see the mechanical skill both the teams have. It's not like they're unevenly matched. It's just that macro-wise, Edinburgh have been the better team.
Yeah, they definitely have, and you're right. It's a combination of players, but I also want to talk about how they play in conjunction with each other, because you definitely see it here. But it's exactly what we talked about. Edinburgh do better at playing together, putting themselves in positions where they can get those trades if they need to, and they don't always need to get trades. But even just there, we saw through the smoke, right? Okay, even when Dundee have numbers, and we saw this a couple times. We saw this over a couple times on A side. We saw it again on B. We see it mid. We see it through smokes, but they're pushing one by one, and so they're just allowing Edinburgh to isolate. They're giving isolations to Edinburgh. But if they just swing together, play together, hold across, suddenly things are looking a little bit better for Dundee, and that's what we saw from the rounds they won. So I think if they start playing together, pushing together, calling together, flashing and pushing out together, right? Lots of ways you can play as a team. It's all going to come down to that communication, and that's what we didn't get to see from the map one. We don't know what happened Mirage, but we can only assume that, right? You need to still clean that up a little bit, and they definitely can. The rounds we saw from them, they did that, but it was not consistent enough. And I can only hope that they're able to do that here on Vertigo.
And Vertigo is a very different map to both the map we did see and the map we didn't. Obviously, being a very rotation-heavy map, it might actually favor Dundee in their slightly spread-out approach to their gameplay. We saw a lot of the times when they were on T sides that they were leaving bomb basically in spawn and probing for some picks and then rotating when needed. On Vertigo, that is what you need to do. Obviously, there's only the 2 points are fairly far apart, but there's so many different ways to get to one from the other. So I would like to say Dundee probably have the best chance to make a comeback on this map.
I agree.
Obviously they need to. The pressure is on now, and it's how they deal with that pressure that will determine the outcome realistically.
Yeah, and I think another thing that Dundee did pretty well was some of the rounds, right? They got a little sneaky, right? They would hold maybe off angles or have a good flank maybe come through. And I definitely think that there's a greater chance to be able to do that here on Vertigo. There's so many different pathways, like you said, multi-level map, different chokes that they're going to have to hold. But that also means that Dundee doesn't have to play the same path each time. And I really do think that is where they might have an advantage, is if they can kind of play up with their strats. I think it's going to be harder for Edinburgh to make a call and read. Edinburgh like to play together. They play a little bit more I don't even know what the word I'm looking for, not concisely, but the way they play is a little bit more textbook. And so I think Dundee have the opportunity to play around. But yeah, I mean, we're not going to know until we get in there. And I think the first couple rounds are going to be telling. I'd also like to see a pistol round go their way for Dundee, because I think those rounds really do stack up. And while, yes, one round doesn't make or break, if you're Dundee at this point, you're trying to just get as many rounds as possible on the board. And those pistols are going to be important.
And obviously, if you take that first pistol round, the likelihood of you winning the next round is incredible. Yeah, you might not win the third round, but your economy is at such a stable position that it basically sets you up for the entire game if you win those first two rounds. And if you manage to play fairly safe and keep your money at a stable position, you can basically just stay at a decent point throughout the game. And that's what that's what realistically we need to see from Dundee, because it was so often in that first game where Edinburgh would have a lot of guns, and so would Dundee, and the economy afterwards would be in shambles because Edinburgh would still have guns and Dundee couldn't buy. And if you're in a position where you can't buy one round, you're basically forfeiting a round, and you can't afford to do that when you need to win this map.
Yeah, and especially if you're Dundee and you're looking at this map where you have not this map specifically, but this series, this matchup, And you have historically, we know from the stats from Mirage, and then we know from map 1, you've had trouble. And so when you're talking about something like economy, you can't bank on getting any thrifties, I think, if you're Dundee at this point, because it was tough. And we saw there were a couple rounds that first half. They didn't have, it wasn't quite a thrifty, but they didn't have full loadouts, and they came very, very close and then won the next couple. So when they're in tune and in touch with each other, they do fine. But it's just, and I don't know at what point in their communication, kind of some things aren't aligning. That's a conversation for Neo, but you can't bank on a thrifty. So being able to keep that economy stable, and yeah, it does start with the pistols, because even if you win, or even if you lose round 3, you're hoping that I win pistol, I win the second one when I buy, and hopefully, you know, you can bring 4 or 5 guns into the next one to bonus with. So even if you lose that round 3, you're taking weapons out of the hand of Edinburgh. But it starts with that first pistol. It does, and there's an opportunity in the next half to do that again. But if you're Dundee here, I think the name of the game is just getting as many rounds on the board as possible. It doesn't matter how. Is it, okay, we stalled for time, they couldn't defuse? Is it we, you know, we flanked them and killed the entire squad? You know, squad wiped them? Maybe. You know, I think it can be a bunch of different. It's, we got a ninja defuse, right? We had a smoke, they couldn't stop it. So many different ways, but I think if you're Dundee, you're in the position where we have to try everything and try different things to just get a number on the scoreboard, even if it's not a consistent way right now, because obviously your normal strats aren't working. They didn't work map 1, didn't work map 2. The first half of map 1 was close, and they were kind of going back and forth, but it completely fell apart once you're on CT, and you can't have that.
Yeah, and it might have been one of those things where that first map, both teams were testing each other out, and Edinburgh just a more cohesive unit. They're working better as a team overall, and due to that overall game plan that they've come into, they're winning gunfights as well on top of it, because they're in positions and they know they can play with aggression because they're not getting traded back, or they're getting 1 or 2 picks where they really shouldn't, and that confidence builds up. And if you're in a position like Edinburgh are, where you've got 2 maps up on Dundee here, and you just need 1 to close it out, your confidence is at an all-time high. Especially with the scoreline in the previous game being as one-sided as it was.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going into this next game, the only thing on your mind is, let's get this over and done with. We've in their heads, they may have already won, which could be a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. But the confidence means so much in Counter-Strike. Being able to just swing things and rely on your team to be with you is massive, and Edinburgh have had that so far.
Yeah, and I do think that plays a huge part in it. And again, you can get in the position where you're overconfident, you get too cocky, and you let things slip. And so if you're Edinburgh, that's exactly what you don't want to happen. But I mean, otherwise you have that cushion knowing, okay, we have 2 games under our belt, and we just need to win 1 more out of the next 3 games to win. If you're Dundee, you're thinking, okay, we have to win every single game. We can't afford to make any mistakes. If you're Edinburgh, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling really comfortable right now. We decisively won the last 2. Even 8-13, I don't think always is decisive, but when you look at how they played that second half, it was pretty decisive. 13-5, huge. And then you're thinking, okay, yeah, we're confident, we're comfortable. Even if we lose, we're fine. I mean, think about whether you're in a tournament setting or not, right? I think you feel good, you play well. When you're having fun with your friends, right? Isn't that when you play the best? You're not worried about anything. You're
Yeah.
not overthinking anything. And that's exactly what Edinburgh had the opportunity to do. And that's probably what happened on Mirage. They felt things out map one, said, okay, this works for us. Let's just run it down on Mirage. We didn't get to see it, but I mean, just looking at the scoreline, you can tell exactly what happened.
Yeah. I don't see a lot of hope on the table for Dundee, unfortunately, and I don't like saying that because they have shown so much ability to make comebacks in certain rounds, but they're never consistent.
Yeah.
And consistency is the thing that wins you these games, and that's what Edinburgh have. It's going to be it's going to be hard for them to come back, but it's not impossible.
I agree. I 100% agree, because I think for as much as we're saying like Dundee need to do this, Dundee need to do that, it's not about Dundee being a bad team. It's just about Edinburgh really finding their groove. And when you're up against a strong team like that, you have to play differently. But Dundee are a good team as well. I mean, the rounds that we saw, that first half, did a great job going toe to toe with Edinburgh. The 2 rounds they did win on the second half of map 1 were good rounds. And there were a couple close rounds that they didn't win, but it was close. So
yeah,
I think Dundee's a great team. Obviously, they deserve a spot in the grand finals, but they just need to prove why, hey, we're Dundee. We are the champions of Scotland. This is a battle for Scotland, and we have bragging rights on the line. You took down a Dundee college earlier. You're not going to take down University of Dundee. Like, you're not going to do it. And so I think if they kind of just lean into that, have fun. Again, it's a collegiate match. It's fun. We're all students here. I think if they can lean into that and they can have fun with it without overthinking, they definitely have a shot, because they're a great team as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. As much as we're saying there's so much pressure on the line, it's for the entirety of Scotland. It is, at the end of the day, just, if they look at it as just another game, it's a better going into it being like, okay, we're just queuing up into a competitive game with my friends. Whatever happens, happens. And they can't think about it too much. So I think that's what mentally they'll have to do. As we hopefully, after a small break once again, get underway.
A bit of grinding up the herb is what I'm on. Shouts go out to mums. This one is the icy one. Go get the long johns. 50 Pret in London, if it's on then I'm on. I know they feel it when I spit, it's like the Missy song. Shut your noise. Silence when I run the voice. In your ears, open your mind.
Why do they talk like gangsters, but they don't move like gangsters? Why do they walk like gangsters, but they don't move like gangsters? Why do they act like gangsters, but they don't move like gangsters? Why do they rap like gangsters, but they don't move like gangsters?
Tell your favorite rapper that I'm here, not to clash, I'm gon' collab a lot this year. Maxing out the bang, don't need no gloves or mask for that. I got this yapper era, geezer with the tracks they want to hear. Been this way for years, still they sending messages in bottles. Was this really meant or was it not for? Can't connect the dots, I got this smelly in my pocket, I forgot yo. Strictly high grade and that's the motto, unless the plug is awful. Don't do OZs, not the ogre lab, been left alone to be my own steez. Now they clock on, race to the bottom. I see it all, I know my options. Never gonna stop unless I often. Not Billy and Mandy, you're dealing with me and a beast, a different beast. Not feeling the average, I come with the elegant steez and do as I please. I am a mountain to a molehill, highlight of the show reel. Love me cause I'm so real.
Gangsters, but they don't move like gangsters. Why do they walk like gangsters, but they don't move like gangsters? Why do they act like gangsters, but they don't move like gangsters? Why do they rap like gangsters, but they don't move like gangsters?
All right, welcome back, guys. That was a short break, but we're getting ready to hop in to Vertigo here for map 3. Now, University of Edinburgh did take the first 2 maps, like we said, and we did talk a little bit about what we want to see from Dundee before we head into Vertigo. But now, I mean, that was just all talk. But now we're actually getting ready to go into a game, and now this is when the nerfs start to come out if you're Dundee.
Yeah, it is. We've had some premium yap leading into this game, so hopefully it's going to be a really close one, and we're going to battle it out. As we see, there we have the 2-0 at the top, and we're just going into the warm-up to begin with. Obviously, this map, the warm-ups are very quick because those ledges come into play. Obviously, there's a lot of interesting things you can do on this map as well. It's very different compared to the other maps in the game. There's a lot of boost spots that you can get into that give some crazy angles, as well as a lot of rotation play that could come out for both teams. We are going to see, I believe it's Edinburgh on the CT side to begin with. Which we've seen they usually favour the T side, so it might be a chance for Dundee to make some sort of a lead leading up into the half. That's what we want to see.
Yeah, we do need to see that. And I mean, I think for Dundee, unfortunately, they don't have the opportunity to really be like, okay, well, we can have a stronger half and a weaker half. No, both teams have to be strong.
I do apologise.
Yeah.
It is actually flipped, so Dundee are on the CT to begin with. So that changes things if you're Dundee, because now you just need to weather the storm, because Edinburgh have been incredible on this T side, and we are going to see a B fast take. The B players for Dundee not in position to counter this, and traded 1 for 1. Edinburgh managed to pick up another. Rogue coming through the mid there. 2v3 situation for Dundee as they both posted to come through. Hidden in the smoke is an Edinburgh player, gets behind one and picks up both. And there we have it. First round, that pistol round, the all-important pistol round that we were talking about, goes in favour of Edinburgh.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just one round. How important is it? But when you're Dundee, you really need that pistol round. I think mentally, I think economy-wise, I think in the series in general.
We are going to see two AKs coming out here from Edinburgh as well.
I mean, if you can get one and recover a weapon, that could be real good. But it's going to be tough when a team as strong as Edinburgh has the weapons, and look, they're able to get there.
They're already wrapping into spawn. That's another thing you need to be careful on this map, because there's so many different ways to get around the map. You can be flanked incredibly quickly, and we saw that recovering guns on this map can be really difficult as well, because they can't. Not only do they blend in somewhat to the terrain, it's a very open map in some places. So depending on where you do get those trades, those guns might be lost to time, realistically.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like you said, just not in a position to get it. I do think now that they have weapons, I mean, if they can have a strong showing here, there's time. They have weapons, they have
come
kits,
out here.
they have
Cal picks up
utility,
one.
they just need to
trade it out. The SMGs come out. Again, Edinburgh with the advantage leading into the point. both players wrapping. It's going to be a 2v2 fight on A, as one of the Edinburgh players is still wrapping through B. But it's a dangerous situation. Wrapping around the smoke. He catches one. He didn't see the other through the smoke. There is a player wrapping behind him. Catches him here. 21 HP on the Edinburgh player that's on point. The nade comes out, landing fairly flush onto him. The molly comes up to just weather the storm, and getting caught out there. Two different angles at once. You're not coming out of that safe.
Yeah, you're not. And that's tough. If you're Dundee, though, I mean, that round feels like a must-win. You invested into it. Had some good early picks, but the problem is anytime you get a kill, they have a teammate right there to trade you right out, and that's what happens. And that's why we were talking about how important it is to play together.
A good read by Dundee here, stacking all onto A as the Edinburgh players make their way up ramp. He doesn't manage to find the kill, and that could be dangerous. The Deagle here could be the make or break. The Julies come out. Doesn't manage to pick up a gun, however, as now the Edinburgh player managed to pick up a gun and get out. And that wraparound, again, that one B player wrapping all the way past point. And we're seeing here, Edinburgh actually has the confidence and the money to get an AWP round 4. The AWP attack on this map
is a T sided up. I want to point out as well. And yeah, if I'm Edinburgh, seeing how this map has gone, seeing how the other map's gone, yeah, I feel pretty confident.
However, the first pick comes out from Dundee. Rogue.
Yeah, White just looking to see if they can find anyone, but Dundee knows when to back off.
Just separate him. Oh, on the stairs. We don't actually see it, but he does get taken down. B is fairly open here as the A players from Dundee start to rotate. They're actually going to get there before catching the player in mid, but Howell manages to take him out with the AWP. Dangerous situation for Dundee as he picks up another and on point. One mid player. He does manage to take down the AWPer in mid, but it's a 3v1 situation. Post plan. Neo is the captain. If anyone's going to bring this back, it's going to be him. And I may have cursed him a little bit as my sentence finished, and he does get taken down. 5-0. Not a very good position for Dundee to be in, as they're getting forced to buy as well.
It also looks like Edinburgh not electing to pick up that up and bring it in the next one. Didn't quite go the way they needed, but that's okay. They're so strong on team that it doesn't matter. You can lose a couple guns. Economy's built up, but for Dundee, this is a must-win round.
Flash comes out. How does get traded out? Oh, the flick from right. That could have been an insane comeback if he managed to get that pick, but Wright is just too quick on the flick. Takes him out. The spam comes through the smoke. Doesn't manage to find Rogue. Rogue gets traded out. Swift. Does he gets timing.
The timing?
Doesn't manage to get too much damage either way. The nade does come out. Doesn't do much. He is getting pincered 3 ways here. He has to watch all angles. Now, I don't think the wide swing was the correct choice. I don't believe he knew that there was a player wrapping behind him. That kill. That
that's tough.
That ramp push almost being stopped by Dundee, and it's starting to look desperate now. They're making mistakes because they need to play more aggressive. We're going to see an XM come out from the side of Dundee onto this ramp, pushing up to the AWP player, getting into a position to hold these stairs. This is dangerous for Edinburgh to push into. Other side of the map on A, they do manage to find a trade out in the ramp. We're going to see a boost over here, possibly. As the player wraps over, manages to get picked. A gun is going to be picked up here for Dundee. Doesn't get much from it as Wright takes him out, and Rogue manages to find an AWP kill, putting Neo back in another 1v3 situation. He does find one this time.
Okay.
The nade lands directly. 51 HP, the AWP player is peeking around. He manages to jump round the corner, getting away. Rogue doesn't exactly know the position. Oh, he could timing through the smoke, but Wright is watching it. The knife comes out. They body block. They don't know.
Wait, oh, they do. They felt the body. They felt the
Neo
block.
finding the kill though, and not knowing Rogue's position. If only Neo could have realized what he was bumping into sooner, and he didn't have to take that damage. Yeah, I think he panicked afterwards, not knowing where Rogue was.
Well, I mean, I think if you looked at that, right, they both kind of were like, wait, what am I stuck on? But I mean, I think that's hard. I think you're going to, look at that. Now they know. Backed off before the knife, but the problem is that was an op shot anyway, right? You backed into an op.
Neo being the difference. Two players get taken down for the side of Dundee, though Neo in a decent position here. The two players pushing ramp are dead. Bomb is down. And Dundee now have access to that bomb, can lock it down, and now playing on the defense with the positional advantage, but Edinburgh do know where the bomb is, do know where these players may be stood, still checking their corners. You see here, they're probably going to aim towards maybe a ladder room push. Rogue still trying to clear out A. There is a player lurking on that site as we see two players walking towards ladder. Neo manages to find Rogue on the other side of the map. It's a good pick from Neo. Can he manage? Source ladders aren't usually this quiet. He does make a step. Did he hear it? He's going to check it. He's going to walk out into the gunfire. He doesn't find him. Cal finds one on the other side of the map. Right, gets taken out. 1v2 situation. This is a must-win round. You do not want to see them go 8-0 up.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, the op is still in play. They have to make sure they can play together. The op might be saved, but it's
10
Cal, and they have
seconds left.
plenty of rounds to burn, lots of money. They're just going to save op. I don't blame them.
And even if you're Dundee here, you don't want to push up. You don't want to even try and get the AWP out of his hands. Neo there being the difference though, MVP in that round. And so far in this game, he has been the only one to make things happen for Dundee.
Yeah, I mean, I think in part of your job as an IGL is to kind of rally your team behind you. I think it's hard. They are able to do it here, but remember that also Edinburgh is a very strong team.
One.
Good shots from
Gets
Swift
the info that the rest of
knows,
the team is
knows
there.
When to back off. Call those rotations in, looking for
caught.
another. Can't find it. Did some damage, but what?
You see the Dundee players all posturing up here. They still think one may be mid. How somehow Edinburgh get on point without losing another member. Dundee just giving up the point, right, finding the headshot through the smoke on the outside of the map. Bomb being planted. Here we see Edinburgh hiding in the smoke again. He walks past him. Another one does. He is being held on the smoke. He doesn't see that player. He doesn't get spotted. Just the find two. We've seen that twice on that B point where Zendrix just hides in that smoke and Dundee haven't cleared it.
But it's hard because you can't see anything in these smokes. Like, you really can't. It's so hard to clear vision. Barely there. That was just brutal. 1, 2, look at that. Great.
I think Dundee were playing a little bit too defensively in that round though, giving up that. They had the early read and the rotate. Cal finding one on a player that was just getting too aggro. And it's looking like the beginning of the end here. 8-1 with 4 kills early in this round. Alpha is just wanting this game to be over, picking up 3 in quick succession and another with a 1-tap. They're trying to end this one now. They're not holding any prisoners. And Dundee are just not being able to claw anything back as they're going into round 11 on SMGs against a team that has the lowest member economy-wise for Edinburgh, has almost 7,000. You can see
Yeah,
here.
it's tough. It's a tough ask. That is the operator down. Not before finding one casualty, but
and
Edinburgh just so comfortable, so strong. Swift's gonna find another, but it's still a 1v3 here. Gonna have to try to isolate these, and
bombs going down.
now you're working against the clock. You don't have a kit.
No info on any of these Edinburgh players. He does hear the steps on Rogue, but doesn't react in time. And Rogue taunting a little bit, I believe, there, knowing they have the economy going into this round, and it's looking even more decisive than the scoreline for the last game that we didn't manage to get to see. 10-1 T sides on Vertigo.
We knew this is their stronger half, but Dundee had to put up a little bit of a fight here.
Comes out.
Shot in a
Rogue
trade.
finds
That's
one.
what you need to do. You need
Gets
to
caught
find
with a
these
nade.
trades.
It's an even round so far, but if you look at the guns and the position that Edinburgh are in, the read has come out from Dundee though. They do know they're going B. The check into mid just to make sure. The same smoke comes out. Will we see them push up into it? No, they're playing more defensively, checking behind. Dundee's players need to play together. Doesn't find it. He drops in, doesn't hit the no-scope, but gets traded out anyway. The no-scope comes out through the smoke. He's wrapping behind, gets caught. Cal running into a wall. And we're going into the second half with Edinburgh only needing 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, and I think Swift has been doing a good job, but it's hard when you're put in these situations. You can only isolate so much. And if I'm Dundee right now, I'm looking at the scoreline. I'm seeing, okay, we put 1 up this half. We have to have a near flawless second half. We have to have a flawless half if we don't want to go to overtime and give them the opportunity to fight back. You have to win pistol, and we haven't seen them win a pistol yet. Now, we don't know what happened on Mirage, but things not looking too good.
We see here Dundee making their way up ramp, managing to get halfway up there, but there are 2 Edinburgh players. The info gets called out. They know. You're going to see a rotate here, right, with this crossfire with the smoke on his right. Shot's not landing for Neo. He does get a dink. Not managing to clear it up. 1 kill comes out for Dundee. They're actually taking this point fairly comfortably on this first pistol round, but Cal manages to find one with the dualies. Rogue gets taken out. These dualies have been his comfort pick on pistol rounds, it seems, as the sneaky from behind Centrix finds the planter. That puts Dundee in a very dangerous position. They know someone's behind, but he's wrapping around. Bomb is down. Both players for Edinburgh on the bomb. He doesn't find his head. He's hiding on those orange boxes, waiting for the backup. He's low held. Is he going to make a step if he drops off? He's trying to find an angle. He steps up, gets caught. Centric's taking him out. And they know this player's coming from this side, but doesn't know he's wrapping around. But the crossfire is there. He doesn't know he's on his right. He checks ramp. And Cal managing to just stay in that little cubby. Not playing safe, not showing his position too early. And it's this kill won that round. Zentrix managing to find the planter and getting a position on point where you now have to retake again for Dundee. The Tech 9's coming out to try and close this, at least get a round back. Mac 10 does find one. The Molly finds another and puts one out. One of Dundee's players on 1 HP. The flashes don't land. That one does. Neo and Swift finding kills. Neo and Swift trying their best to claw this game back. Rogue from behind. Centrix on point, finds one. He's got an M4 in hand. Finds another, and Rogue finds the last. And that will be game and match point, and also series point. Edinburgh taking this 13-1, 3-0 overall, and a fairly decisive. Got there in the end. Win over Dundee, crowning themselves as the champions of Scotland.
Champions of Scotland.
For Counter-Strike.
Man, I mean, what a great Counter-Strike 2 series we had to watch. And while things looked a little bit closer after game 1, I mean, I think this really showed why Edinburgh deserves to be the champion. And I you know, different series, different day, different outcome, yes, but I mean, Edinburgh looking strong. They deserve this win, and I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better grand finals. I mean, maybe if it were a little closer, if you're Dundee, you're going, yeah, I definitely couldn't ask for a better one. But I mean, it just really kind of, they showed why they're just such a strong team and such a fierce opponent. And so, I mean, I think the fact that Dundee were able to go kind of round for round for them there on that map 1, I think that says a lot. And so I'm sure this isn't the last we're seeing of either of these two teams, but Edinburgh definitely deserve this one today, Berg.
That is definitely the case. So we've got a few things to do before we wrap up shortly. I'm a big fan of MVP awards. Do you want to give out an MVP award to someone?
Well, okay, you give out your MVP award first, and then I'll give mine.
Personally, for me, I think Cal deserves all the praise.
Yeah.
Being consistent over all the games we've saw, taking that first point with Rogue easily, and in that last game just being so confident in his peaks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Cal and I mean everyone really from Edinburgh looked good. You know, I think for my MVP though, I kind of want to give it to Zentrix. I think there were a lot of impactful rounds that came from maybe a play from Zentrix, and we didn't really talk about it too much, but yeah, I mean, I think Zentrix is another great player. I think everyone on both teams, I mean, had their moments. I think everyone was a strong player, but it can only be one, or in this case, 2 MVPs. And so I definitely think Cal, Zentrix. So I mean, on the MVP goes to Edinburgh, the whole team. It's all of them.
So I've been the Berg.
Yeah, I'm Kaiserin, and it was a pleasure casting with you today, Berg.
It was very nice casting with you as well. And obviously our observer, Star Drago, with all the technical difficulties he had to deal with today, he's done a great job.
Also, the production team, Will, Diego, I mean, you guys killing it as always, as to be expected from Charge Esports UK. And yeah, and also make sure you guys follow socials, Charge Esports UK, and of course at Battle for Scott and at Battle for Scotland on most socials. And of course, this isn't the only game we have here over at Battle for Scotland. We've had a bunch of games all week, and we're continuing tomorrow. We still have Rocket League, and hey, maybe there'll be a new champion of Scotland there, but you know, we won't know until tomorrow, Berg.
We'll have to see. Thanks guys for watching.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see you guys in the next one.